Let me start with something that might sound wrong at first. There is no such thing as falling out of love. I know it doesn't match what we're told, but love isn't an emotion that rises and falls on its own. It's a decision, a choice you make every day. A feeling can intensify, fade, shift, or go numb based on 100 variables completely unrelated to the person in front of you. Play the right song after a hard argument and you'll feel it rush back. That doesn't mean it left, it means your nervous system moved. If love is a choice, then the question of whether to stay or go isn't really about how you feel, it's about what's actually happening and what both people are choosing. That reframe matters because most of the advice out there on this topic starts in the wrong place. It asks you to audit your feelings and trust the conclusion. But feelings are real without being reliable. They're data, not verdicts. What you're actually looking for when you're asking, should I leave, is a pattern. Something consistent enough to tell you the truth about the relationship. Not just about a bad week or a hard season. Leave when they stop trying. That's a decent starting point. But it asks something of you before it asks anything of the other person. So before you assess your partner, you have to assess yourself. Honestly, that's the part most people skip, and it's also the part that changes everything. Before anything else, is this about them or about you? This question is uncomfortable, and that's exactly why it has to come first. When I was at my worst in my marriage and I was certain the problem was her, I blamed. I constructed narratives. I accused my wife of things. Not because she gave me reason to, but because I was so saturated in my own shame and insecurity that I was practically willing it to be true. That's not a reflection of her. That is entirely on me. So honesty requires me to say my behaviors were harming her, my avoidance, my self-sabotage, my defensiveness. They created real pain for another person. Understanding where those behaviors came from didn't excuse them. An explanation is not a solution. So before you evaluate the relationship of your partner, you owe yourself one direct question. Am I a part of the problem? This isn't about self-punishment, it's about reality. And reality is the only ground you can actually build something on. A few things worth sitting with honestly. Are you consistently triggered in this relationship? And do you know where that comes from? Your partner or your history? When your partner raises a concern, is your first instinct curiosity or defense? Have people in other relationships, not just this one, told you similar things about your behavior? Are you bringing unprocessed pain into this relationship and expecting the other person to carry it? Now, these aren't easy questions. I've gotten most of them wrong at various points, but they're necessary. Once you've turned the mirror on yourself, you can look more clearly at the other person and do so with less distortion. You can ask, are they trying? Consistently, not occasionally. Anyone can try when the relationship is on the line. Panic looks like effort from the outside. What you're looking for is something steadier. Do they take accountability when nothing is forcing them to? Do they change, even in small ways, over time? Do they care about your experience, or are they primarily defending their own? Effort that only surfaces when you're about to leave isn't effort, it's self-preservation. That distinction matters because it tells you what's actually motivating the other person. But here is the honest counterweight. Have you given them room to try? Sometimes it looks like a partner who isn't trying is actually a partner who has given up because every attempt they made has been met with contempt or dismissed or used against them later. If you've been in pain for a long time, it's possible you've been making it very difficult for anyone to reach you. That's worth knowing. At least it's worth assessing. You should also assess if you're becoming someone you don't recognize. This is a bit harder to admit, and it matters more than most people realize. Relationships don't just affect how you feel, they shape who you become. They either move you toward yourself or away from yourself. And over time, you can tell which direction you're drifting. Ask it plainly. Am I more honest in this relationship or more avoidant? More grounded or more reactive? More secure or increasingly anxious about things that never used to shake me? Resentment is one of the clearest signals. It shows up when you've broken down your boundaries so many times in service of keeping the peace that something in you starts to turn. You resent a person because something you needed was consistently unmet, or because you kept saying yes when you meant no. But again, self-honesty is required here. Some of what you call becoming someone we don't recognize is actually growth revealing discomfort. Sometimes the relationship isn't making you worse, it's making you face things you've avoided for years. The question is whether the discomfort is development or destructive. And only honest reflection, not just the feeling of it, can tell you which. You must also assess if there is a real connection or just attachment. These feel similar from the inside, but they aren't. Attachment can be intense, even addictive, high highs, low lows. The kind of bond that makes leaving feel genuinely unbearable, even when leaving is the right thing. Attachment is often rooted in fear, fear of loss, fear of being alone, fear that the pain of ending it is worse than the pain of staying. Connection is quieter. It's being seen, even imperfectly. It's emotional safety that builds over time rather than eroding it. It's a sense that both people are trying to move towards something, not just trying to survive each other. Here's what I had to reckon with personally. I couldn't always tell the difference because my own unhealed attachment patterns were distorting everything that I perceived. When you're avoidant, you will often experience genuine closeness as threatening and create distance precisely when connection is possible. When you're anxiously attached, you may be clinging to someone not because they're right for you, but because the fear of losing them has become the whole relationship. A relationship can survive a tremendous amount: mistakes, trauma, long periods of distance or conflict. What it cannot survive is denial. Both of you need to be able to face reality. When one or both people refuse accountability, rewrite history to protect their version of events, avoid the hard conversations indefinitely, or live in the fantasy of how things should be rather than engaging with how things actually are, the relationship isn't being worked on. It's being maintained as a fiction. The part that's easy to miss: you can be the one doing this. I've been the one doing this. I've been told a version of events that was convenient. I've been so triggered and defensive that I rejected information before I even evaluated. And there's no value in working hard to understand the truth and then refusing to be accountable for what you find. If you discover through honest reflection that some of what your partner has been saying about you is correct, the only right move is to say so, not as a performance, as a beginning. Both people have to be willing to be in reality together, but you can only control one side of that equation. So start there. If nothing changed, would you choose this? This is a question that cuts through almost everything else. Not, what if they finally become who I need them to be? Not, what if, we can get back to how it was in the beginning? But if this is it, this version of them, this version of us, this version of me in this relationship, would I choose it? The answer doesn't have to be loud or dramatic. It can be quiet and clear, but it has to be honest, which means setting aside hope, history, and sunk cost, and just looking at what's actually in front of you. And one more honest question embedded in that one: is the version of you in this relationship someone you choose? Because if who you are here is someone you don't respect, not because of the relationship, but because of choices you've been making, then leaving doesn't solve that. It follows you. Look, it takes courage to leave. It also takes courage to stay and do the work. Real work, not just the performance of it. Staying makes sense when there's genuine effort, honest reckoning with reality, and some movement, however slow, toward growth. Those things don't have to be perfect. People move at different speeds. Trauma gets in the way. Old patterns are stubborn. But the assessment has to include you, your patterns, your contributions, your defenses, your unhealed wounds that you may be laying at someone else's door. Most of us, when we ask, should I leave this relationship, are really asking, is this person worth staying for? A more complete question is, am I showing up in a way that makes this relationship possible in the first place? Sometimes the answer to that question is clarifying in a way nothing else is. The relationship itself is not the goal. It's the vehicle through which dedication, loyalty, and love either exist or don't. If those things are gone and you've been honest about your own role in the absence, then the question of staying or leaving becomes considerably clearer. Still won't be easy, but it will be honest. And honest is the only ground that's worth standing on.